I mean this in the most respectful way possible, but it's time for you to lock in, shut up, and disappear so that you can become the best version of yourself. We have about 90 days left of 2024. Have you been doing everything you wanted to do? Like, truthfully ask yourself, when you set your New Year's resolutions, have you followed them? Have you exceeded your expectations, or are you just disappointed in your efforts this year? Luckily for you, there is still time. Today we're going to be talking about how to disappear and self-isolate in the right ways. As much as I hate to put it like this, you need to lock in. You need to disappear. You need to self-isolate in order to get what you wanted to do done. And I feel like self-isolation gets a bad rep because a lot of the times people don't actually self-isolate out of want. We don't like to be isolated, and obviously isolation is bad for long periods of time. I'm not saying it's the healthiest thing in the world, but if done right, it can be the most transformative, self-improving experience you've ever had. And I'm here to guide you through it. Welcome. This is the Improvement for Imbeciles podcast. I'm your podcast host, Natalie Etched, and this is where I share ways I'm getting my shit together so that you can get your shit together. January of 2024. I was working full-time, I was in school full-time, and I was posting one YouTube video a week. I had no time to go out and party. I had no time to spend my time so frivolously. And fast forward to now, October 2024, I am fully self-employed. If I didn't have that point of self-isolation, I don't know if I'd make it to the point I'm at now. That being said, I know what it's like to be in your position. You might think to yourself, this doesn't make any sense, you know? I'm working full-time. Obviously, on the weekends, I want to go out and I want to have a fun time, which is valid. I'm not saying to isolate yourself from everyone and punish yourself. The point of self-isolation isn't to punish yourself, it's to study yourself. It's to understand, how far can I go with myself? How can I improve myself in the best way? Even the caterpillar goes into the cocoon in order to become a butterfly. This period of self-isolation isn't always the most fun, right? But it's necessary to transform your life and to become the best version of yourself you want to be. Sometimes you have to think to yourself, how bad do you actually want it? There is nothing wrong with wanting more, but not acting on your desires is a disservice to yourself. I need to dismantle some misconceptions you might have about self-isolation. A lot of people make excuses, okay? And you're probably making excuses for why you can't do X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, you can, you're just choosing not to. One of the main excuses being time. A lot of people will say, I don't have the time for this. That, or they'll say, I'm not gonna be able to get to where I wanna be in enough time. But what you must realize is time is gonna go on with or without you. The time it takes to get to your dream body is gonna go by anyways. The time you use scrolling on TikTok instead of reading something that can help you start a business is going to go by anyways. My point being, it's never too late to get back involved into your desires. I also want you to ask yourself, have I had this desire for a long time? This desire to isolate and really start creating something and to lock in. Have I had this desire for a while? Think back how long you've had this business idea or creative endeavor you've wanted to do. For example, maybe in January, you started a New Year's resolution to get back to the gym and you didn't end up getting past the first week. 9 months have already passed. If you were giving yourself 1 year to get your dream body, 9 months of it has already passed without you having to do literally anything. Giving yourself the excuse that, you don't have enough time is actually devaluing your time because you're not making use of it. Another misconception is this idea that you're never going to get this opportunity. I feel like a lot of people experience FOMO when we go into a period of isolation. What are my friends doing? They're hanging out without me. They're going to forget about me. These are all smoke screens to what we're actually feeling, which is we want to feel important. When we're not attending certain social events, we might feel unimportant, but that is not true. Our brain naturally wants to feel good, right? It's natural to want to go to these events because it gratifies your ego. You're being acknowledged by people you enjoy hanging around. You're around your friends. You're having a fun time. And going into a period of locking in or being in self-isolation doesn't mean to ignore your friends and ignore your family. It just simply means prioritizing what really means more to you. One night out at the club with your friends, or making more money, doing the same thing every weekend, or building a business. When something you're supposed to reward yourself with becomes a habit, that turns into addiction. And that's for anything, not just going out and partying. But if you go out and party all the time, what are you called? you're called an alcoholic, right? If you're scrolling on social media all the time, you are also addicted to social media. If it's having a negative effect on how you view your life and it's distracting you, you are in active opposition to your goals by continuing to engage in that thing. So the first thing that I want you to do is to write down possible distractions for this period of self-isolation. What are things that often distract you from getting what you need to done? And after you write that list, whether that's, TikTok or you'll go out with your friends or whatever the case is, after you make that list, I want you to write how you feel after engaging with this thing for too long. For example, with social media, you'll feel drained and you'll feel almost numbed out to your emotions. This is something I've experienced with social media because you're switching back and forth between different states of consciousness, of feeling happy, of feeling sad, of feeling frustrated very, very quickly. And this shift of emotions often numbs you out to what you're actually feeling. And as much as we love instant gratification, it's also ruining your brain. Let's also talk about when to self-isolate, because I don't think it's always necessary for the time in life you are. For example, when the caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, it's going into the cocoon in order to rediscover itself. So when you are seeking out a transformation, that's when you need to self-isolate and really ask yourself these questions. When you need to learn and expand yourself and network, that's when you exit your self-isolation era because you understood where you're at versus where you're going. The benefits of self-isolation is you're able to identify what's holding you back. You find a new sense of intrinsic motivation to get you to where you want to be rather than relying on the extrinsic of what other people are thinking about you and how to fit into a social group in some sense. And let's be honest, some of the reasons that we continue to do the same things over and over and over again is because we are seeking approval. Self-isolation gives you healing. And I want to say all of that to then go into how to self-isolate, which number one, you need to give yourself a goal. You need to create a focus for how you want this self-isolation period to go, and you also need to have a timeline. For example, you need to do like 30 days. Do something realistic rather than just say, I'm never going to talk to anyone again. Like, babe, that's unrealistic. The main thing to avoid is don't spread yourself out too thin. A lot of times people will start and they'll have all of these expectations for how they're going to transform their life. Think about New Year's resolutions, right? A lot of people will have super, super high hopes, but then they'll let themselves down because they were trying to spread their energy too thin and they didn't create a realistic focus for why they're going into self-isolation and why they're locking in. Give yourself a time period, for example, 30 days. 30 days, I'm going to commit to myself in this way. Creating a weekly schedule can really help with this self-isolation period because it's going to give you a goal to kind of look towards. Now, after creating your focus and choosing one big thing to focus on, I want you to start asking yourself, what's my reward? Not just from myself, right? But universally, how am I going to be rewarded from this? Write down 2 rewards that you are going to give yourself. Number 1 is from the universe, and number 2 is from yourself. Set a date. Set a date to commit to yourself. For example, on this day, I'm going to give myself a spa day, or I'm going to go out in nature. Give yourself a reward for completing this 30-day period. That's a gift to yourself if you actually manage to figure this out and lock in. That way you have something to look forward to. And then spiritually, I want you to think about a reality you want to live and imagine what is going to happen if you complete these things. For example, if it's a fitness goal, be like, in this amount of time, I'm going to lose this amount of weight and my body is going to look a lot better and feel a lot better. Think about the emotions behind it. If you're starting a business plan, be like, I'm going to be rewarded from the universe because I'm going to make this amount of money. I'm going to have this lifestyle. Think about these things because even if they don't happen in a month or even a year, you are still putting out energy to be a vibrational match to that reality. You are actively manifesting and keeping your options open for what the world has in store for you. While you do have a grounded, realistic goal about what you're going to give yourself in X amount of time, you are also going to have this spiritual desire that you are welcoming into your life. This is just something that's helped me because I feel like like I get very motivated from this idea of living the lifestyle I want. Let's be honest, most of us like money and most of us like fantasizing about the lifestyle that we want to live. And so just by doing that, you are giving yourself more motivation and reason to continue going if you just write it down. You know, this is a lifestyle I want to live. This is how the universe will reward me. But simultaneously, this is how I'm rewarding myself on this day. I'm going to take myself out to eat, or I'm going to go on a really nice nature walk. Being alone doesn't have to mean loneliness. Being alone doesn't have to mean pain. It doesn't have to mean you're rejected, right? This is just all the things that we've been taught from isolation. A lot of us have not been choosing to isolate ourselves because we remember a time where we didn't have the choice. We were isolated because we were rejected from a social group. We were isolated because we were not accepted. We were isolated because we did something bad, therefore our parents told us to go sit with ourselves in the corner. That is how we associate loneliness with doing something bad or being a punishment of some sort. There will be a lot of limiting beliefs that come up when you enter into this period of isolation because a lot of what our mind has been taught about being alone has solely been negative. And so you'll enter this period of self-isolation, right? And all of a sudden, you'll get this wave of inadequacy, of not feeling like yourself, and you'll want to escape. You'll want to go call a friend. You'll want to stop. You'll want to quit. And I need you to remember that this is a smokescreen. This is a lie. Your brain is sabotaging you. There is no reason to quit. You haven't even ran into anything hard yet. You're just finally addressing yourself after running away so many times. And that's the truth. For example, it's like this. Imagine your mom or your parent figure was calling you and you never picked up for around 2 months. When you call them back up, they're going to flip out on you, right? They're going to be like, where have you been? Why haven't you been answering my calls? Are you okay? Are you safe? That's what you're doing to yourself right now. When you finally check in with yourself after a period of being disconnected from yourself, your soul is going, what just happened? Like, why have you been away from me for so long? It feels weird to actually listen to how you're feeling. But listen to me when I say this, you need to face it. Okay? You need to stop running away and you need to face it because this feeling is not meant to hurt you. And I'm saying this because I know someone out there really needs to hear it. Stop running away from yourself, okay? There's no way around this feeling. There's no way but through it. And so when you have all these feelings come up of self-isolation, you know, you see your friends out without you, partying without you, you're gonna get this feeling of FOMO. You're gonna be like, nobody likes me, nobody cares about me, I'm so alone. These are limiting beliefs that will come up and you need to address them. And what you'll realize is what you perceive as a painful feeling when you're in self-isolation is really a feeling of familiarity. It's going to go back to a memory you had of being rejected, of being isolated, not on your own terms. And you're going to have to remind yourself, I'm choosing not to go to this function because I want to lock in. And when you have this fear of missing out, what I want you to ask yourself is, do I fear missing out on this one party or do I fear missing out on my potential? You are going to feel fear either way. Whether you decide to go to that party and you're fearing missing out on your potential and you're regretting it because I was supposed to stay home tonight and not do anything and actually work on my business idea. I was supposed to stay home tonight and edit my video because I want to be a YouTuber. I'm supposed to stay home tonight and work on my art. There's always going to be an excuse and there's always going to be a fear present. But which one do you choose? Feelings are not meant to harm you. They're meant to alert you that something is happening. Just as a stomach ache is to alert you that you ate something bad, a feeling is meant to alert to you that something in your life isn't living up to your standard. And it's okay to feel it, okay? So I just really wanted to get that out of the way because there's going to be feelings of pain that come up during the self-isolation. But again, you're the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. This is not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to self-isolate and really discover yourself again, but it's worth it in the end because you're realizing who you actually are and what you're capable of. Don't you see? You are so capable of handling what you are currently experiencing. I just really want you to see that, bestie. Another thing that's super important is to stay organized and set rest days for yourself. This is extremely important because a lot of times people will lock in and they'll work themselves out out and they'll easily be burnt out by the end of the month. You are not a robot. You are not AI. You are a human. You need rest. You need to digest what happened throughout the day. You can't just be on autopilot all of the time trying to push out things. You have to actually take time and be sure to focus on what really matters. So set one day a week. I usually do Sunday. I have that as my reset day. I do all of my laundry. I vacuum. I wipe down my spaces. I have one day a week where I do more deep cleaning, and then throughout the week I keep up with, making sure I take my dishes out of my room, making sure I declutter my area. I always make sure to do kind of the mundane things day to day, but the bigger tasks such as vacuuming or wiping down certain things, I have that be on Sunday. That way, once I get done with all of those tasks, I just have the rest of the day to do something I want to do and choose to spend my time on something positive. Now, if you're a creative person naturally, sometimes you do have to train your brain to engage in your creative activity. If you're like me at the beginning of the year, my Sundays, I usually just edited the entire day. And I genuinely enjoyed editing, so it was okay for me, but was it technically work? Yes. But if you don't have that, just have your rest day and allow yourself to engage in positive content. Whether that's reading a book or watching a YouTube video and subscribing to my channel, there are so many other ways to make sure you prioritize yourself in this period of self-isolation. So be sure you're doing self-care. It's not a step that you can miss. Next is to monitor your mind during this period. As I said earlier, a lot of limiting beliefs are going to come up throughout this self-isolation process, and you need to be receptive to them, and you need to monitor your mind. Instead of assuming that every thought coming into your mind is yours, take the role as the observer. Start to observe your thoughts, because a lot of the thoughts that pop into your brain are not even your own thoughts. And that's another additional reason why self-isolation is so important, because oftentimes we are bombarded with other people's ideas or perceptions on the world. Even on social media, we can't quiet down our minds and come to our own decisions. And so when you have that quiet alone time, you can finally hear what your soul has been trying to get you to hear. And you can finally shuffle through these negative thought patterns you have and go, where did that come from? Why did I just think that? It's a conscious process of really observing why your mind is thinking the things it does. So that way you can rewire it. And it is literally possible to rewire your brain in this process. You just need to consciously be aware of what you're thinking. And when you think something negative, you need to immediately change it. Have a mantra. For example, no. Mine is literally no. I go no, and what else? And I always replace a negative thought with a positive one immediately. Obviously, I don't think it's bad to have a negative feeling come up and explore it, but I think making sure you recognize that it is a false belief is super important, because while you can explore that a belief you have is negative and why did that come up and what do I want to recreate it to be? You can also recognize that it's there. Thank the universe or God or whatever you believe in. I think it's a very spiritual thing, because when you become aware of something, it's kind of like a mosquito, right? If you're unaware that a mosquito is sucking the blood out of you, you're not gonna feel it. But as soon as you become aware of it, you can either smack it, you can either watch it suck the blood out of you, or you can shoo it away and it can keep coming back. That's how it is with limiting beliefs. And I promise you it's easier to just smack it and get it out of the way than to shoo it off and then have it keep coming back, or to just sit there and let yourself feel that negativity. Also, in these periods where you feel FOMO or you feel these negative beliefs or you feel like you want to quit, you need to remind yourself of your purpose. You have a purpose. And so that's why it's so important to have a reason why you're doing this self-isolation, because you'll stop yourself from giving up and self-sabotaging rather than just, letting things happen to you and just being like, whatever, it didn't work. It didn't work because you chose to make it not work. When you have the choice, when you get rid of that victim mentality, everything starts coming to you and you start completely shifting who you actually are. The second you begin to engage in distractions, you need to stop yourself as well. That's why you need to observe your mind, because the second you realize you're scrolling on TikTok and you're comparing yourself to what your friends are doing on a night out, you need to be like, nope. what is a better use of my time? That's what I want you to ask yourself. What is a better use of my time at this moment? And the first thing that comes to your head is what you should be doing. Even if that thing is just getting off social media, even if that thing is just going to bed, don't lose sleep over things that aren't going to matter in the amount of time you are taking to transform. Just don't worry about things that aren't as important as your goals. If the experience is meant for you, it will not pass you by. There's no reason to feel fear of missing out when you're doing this isolation for yourself. You're doing it to not miss out on your own potential. With that being said, you guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Improvement for Imbeciles podcast. Thank you guys for making it to the end of this video. If you made it to the end, I want you to comment robot in the comments because you're not a robot. If you're tuning in on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please be sure to give this podcast a rating. It really, really helps. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and check out all my social medias. I share more advice on my social medias and different types of content on there, like my lifestyle, my habits. So go check me out. And with that being said, you guys, I'll see you guys next week. Bye, y'all.